Orion's heart pounded in his chest as he watched her walk through the park. Emily. Her presence was like a magnet, drawing him in despite his every attempt to resist. The air seemed to crackle around him, and he knew, deep down, that there was no turning back now. The first time he saw her, it hit him like a punch to the gut. A surge of something powerful, raw, and uncontrollable. He couldn't understand it. He didn't want to understand it. The alpha leader of the most powerful werewolf pack in the region wasn't supposed to feel this way, especially not for a human. He glanced at her from across the park, her laughter soft and sweet as she shared a joke with a friend. She was carefree, unaware of the storm she was about to walk into. His gaze lingered on her, drawn by the bond he couldn't deny. She was his mate, and that single truth sent waves of heat through his body. The connection was undeniable. The pull was magnetic. He wanted to close the distance between them, to claim her, but he couldn't. Not yet. He couldn't let himself. Orion turned away, forcing his feet to move. His thoughts spiraled, his wolf side fighting for control. He needed to be rational. He couldn't let this happen, not with a human. His pack depended on him. There was no room for distractions. No room for weakness. But as the day wore on, his thoughts returned to her. It was the same every time. The feeling of helplessness, of knowing that she was already a part of his life, whether he wanted it or not. He could push her away, he could try to keep his distance, but it wouldn't change the truth. She was his. That night, he found himself in the woods, his wolf form bursting free as the moon rose high above the trees. He ran, faster than he ever had, his claws tearing into the earth beneath him. The wind whipped through his fur, but even the freedom of his wolf couldn't drown the constant pull of Emily's presence. His mind was consumed with thoughts of her, of what she meant to him. But it wasn't just about the bond. It was about the danger. The world he lived in was filled with threats and enemies lurking at every turn. His pack needed him. They needed a strong leader who made decisions based on loyalty to the pack. He couldn't afford any distractions. And yet, here she was, a human, his mate. As the hours passed, Orion's wolf tired, and he returned to his human form. His mind was a battlefield, torn between his duties and the magnetic force pulling him toward Emily. He couldn't keep running from this. He knew it. But what could he do? He couldn't expose her to this world. He couldn't put her in danger. The pack would never accept her. She was a liability. The next morning, he found himself standing near the coffee shop where Emily frequented. She was there, just as he knew she would be. The way her hair caught the light, the way she moved, everything about her seemed to pull him closer. And yet, he couldn't make himself approach her. Just keep walking, he told himself. You can do this. But his feet betrayed him. They moved of their own accord, taking him closer and closer to her. She was sitting at an outdoor table, sipping her coffee, engrossed in a book. He stopped just a few feet away, uncertain of what to do next. And then she looked up. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the world stood still. Orion, she said, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. You're always around, aren't you? He froze for a moment, his mind racing. He hadn't expected her to acknowledge him so easily. He hadn't expected her to be so calm. He could see the curiosity in her eyes, but there was no fear. Not yet. Just taking a walk, he said, forcing a casual tone, though it felt like he was lying to her, lying to himself. It's a nice day? Her smile widened. Yeah, it is. I didn't expect to see you here. Same, he replied, swallowing hard. His body reacted to her, as if her presence sparked something deep within him. His wolf was restless, wanting to step forward, to close the distance between them. He had to fight it. She set her coffee down and patted the chair across from her. Come sit. I could use the company. He hesitated for a moment. Sitting down would only make this harder. But it was too late. He was already moving, already sinking into the chair across from her. The conversation was easy at first. She asked about his day, and he responded, keeping his answers short and careful. But every time she smiled, it felt like a small crack in his defenses. She had no idea what he was, what they were, and yet here she was, pulling him in with her laughter, her warmth. The bond between them hummed in the background, louder now than ever before. As the minutes passed, his resolve weakened. He couldn't lie to her forever. He knew it. But every part of him wanted to protect her from the truth, from this world he had been born into, the world that could tear them both apart. He couldn't bring her into it. Not like this. And yet, the more he tried to push her away, the more she pulled him in. As the conversation stretched on, Orion couldn't help but notice the way Emily looked at him. There was something in her eyes, curiosity mixed with that subtle undercurrent of doubt. She could sense that something was off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. And that made him feel even worse. The longer they talked, the more he realized that the truth was inevitable. But he didn't want her to know. She was innocent, untouched by the dangers of his world. In the peaceful bubble she lived in, there was no place for a creature like him, no place for the violent, bloody pack dynamics that ruled his life. He couldn't pull her into this. She would never be safe, not in his world. Orion, she said, breaking into his thoughts. You're quiet today? What's on your mind? The question, so simple, made his chest tighten. She was waiting for him to say something, anything. But what could he say? How could he explain the bond that was already growing between them, a bond that made every word feel like a lie? I'm just trying to figure some things out, he said, his voice strained. It's been a long few weeks. She tilted her head, her brow furrowing slightly. What kind of things? You know you can talk to me, right? The sincerity in her voice was enough to make him hesitate. She trusted him. She had no idea what she was trusting. She didn't know the world she was about to enter, the one she would be forced to navigate if she ever found out the truth. Orion shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his hands clenched into fists beneath the table. He was fighting every instinct to tell her the truth, to pull her into his world and explain everything. But the words wouldn't come. He couldn't do it. Not yet. A sudden chill ran through him, and his senses flared. Something was wrong. A low growl echoed in the back of his mind. Danger. He looked around instinctively, scanning the street for any sign of movement. That's when he saw it. A shadow darted between two buildings, barely perceptible to human eyes, but clear as day to his heightened senses. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He didn't have time to waste. His protective instincts surged, but just as quickly, they were tempered by the reality that Emily was sitting right across from him. He couldn't just shift in the middle of the street. He couldn't expose her to this. But he had no choice. The danger was closing in. Without thinking, he stood abruptly, startling Emily. Stay down, he said, his voice sharp. He didn't wait for her to respond. His instincts had already taken over. The pack's enemies were close, too close. Emily blinked up at him, clearly confused. What's going on? I don't have time to explain, he said. The words rushed. Get to cover. Now. She hesitated, but there was no time to explain. Orion's heart pounded in his chest as his body shifted, his wolf form pushing to the surface. The transformation was almost instant, a blur of fur and teeth. He could feel the power flooding through him, his muscles rippling, his senses sharpening. He wasn't just the alpha anymore, he was the beast. But Emily was still human. She had no idea what was happening. She wouldn't understand. Orion, she shouted, her voice panicked. What's happening? What are you doing? He didn't have time to answer. The rival werewolf had stepped into the street now, a menacing figure blocking their path. His eyes glowed with malice as he sneered at Orion. He was one of the rogue wolves from the pack that had been threatening Orion's territory. You're slipping, Alpha, the rogue snarled. And we've come to claim what's ours. Orion bared his teeth, his wolf form fully unleashed now. Stay away from her. The rogue laughed darkly. She's in the wrong place at the wrong time. You're too soft, Orion. Letting a human into your life. That's your mistake. Get away, Orion growled, stepping forward. His voice was a snarl, but it carried a warning. The rogue pack was always a threat, but this time, they had made the biggest mistake of all. The fight erupted in an instant. The rogue lunged forward, claws extended, but Orion was faster, stronger. He tore into the rogue, claws sinking deep, his fangs flashing in the fading daylight. The ground beneath them trembled with each blow, each clash of teeth and claws. Through it all, he could feel Emily's eyes on him. He could feel her disbelief, her fear, her shock. She had no idea what kind of world she had just stepped into, and he couldn't keep her safe if she didn't understand the truth. The battle didn't last long. Orion was too powerful, too skilled. But the weight of the situation hung heavy over him. He had just exposed her to everything. His world, his pack, his enemies. She could never go back to her old life now. It was too late. The rogue lay motionless on the ground, his chest rising and falling shallowly. Orion stood over him, his chest heaving with exertion. He didn't take his eyes off Emily, who was still frozen in place, her face pale and horrified. "Emily," he said quietly, stepping toward her. "I'm sorry. I didn't want you to see this. But I couldn't protect you without showing you the truth." Emily's breath hitched as she backed away, her hands shaking. What was that? What are you?" Orion's heart sank. He had hoped he could protect her from this world. But now it was too late. She had seen too much. "I'm a werewolf," he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. "The leader of a pack. And you're my mate." The words hung in the air, thick and heavy, each one hammering away at the fragile walls Emily had built around herself. She shook her head, as if trying to clear the fog, her mind racing, struggling to process the impossible. "Hey, werewolf." Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper, the disbelief in her tone cutting through the heavy silence. She looked at him, her gaze flicking between his wolf form, still partly visible in the light, and his human face, contorted with anguish. Orion took a step closer, but she backed away, her eyes wide with panic. Her breath was shallow, quick. "No, this is insane. You're lying." "I'm not lying," he said softly, his voice strained. He wanted to move toward her, to pull her into his arms and make her understand, but he knew that it wasn't that simple. She wasn't ready for this. She could never be ready for this. The bond between them was still there, pulling him toward her, but all he could do was stand still and let her take it in, even if it broke him. She needed time. "I didn't want you to see this," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "But I couldn't stop it. There's no way to keep you safe if you don't understand what's happening. If you don't know what I am." Emily's hands trembled as she placed them on the table to steady herself, as though the physical act might calm the storm swirling inside her. She couldn't seem to take her eyes off him, as if she couldn't decide whether he was real or some twisted nightmare. "What are you?" she whispered, her voice thick with fear and confusion. "I'm the alpha of my pack," Orion said, taking another step forward, his gaze never leaving hers. "The leader, the strongest. And you." He stopped, swallowing the words, the weight of them crushing him. "You're my mate, the one the universe picked for me." She flinched at his words, the pain in them raw and unfiltered. "I'm what? Your scent, your presence, it calls to me," he explained, his voice barely more than a growl now. "I can feel it. I've never felt anything like this before. You're mine, and I'm yours. That's how it works. It's the bond." "Stop," Emily said, shaking her head furiously. "Just stop. This isn't real." Her eyes darted around, searching for something, anything, familiar. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Werewolves didn't exist. She'd watched movies, sure, read the stories, but those were fantasy. Myths, not real life. And yet, here he was, standing in front of her, the embodiment of every supernatural nightmare she'd ever imagined. The world around her tilted, her knees going weak as she sank back into the chair. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. She wanted to forget. But there was nowhere to go. Her mind raced, her heart racing even faster. There was no escape. She was in too deep now. Orion didn't move closer, though every part of him wanted to. He stayed where he was, giving her space. But the distance between them felt unbearable. The pull of the bond was stronger than ever. He could feel her fear, her confusion, and it ripped him apart. But what could he do? She wasn't ready for this. He'd exposed her to the world he lived in, a world he had tried to protect her from. "I know this is a lot," Orion said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "I never wanted to put you in this position. But you have to understand. There are dangers. Real dangers. Not just the ones I face, but threats to you, to us. The pack. The rival packs. They don't care that you're human. They'll see you as a weakness." Emily stared at him, eyes wide, as the weight of his words sank in. The pieces began to fall into place, but they didn't make sense. None of it made sense. "The pack?" she whispered, her voice hollow. "What do you mean? Threats to us? I don't even know what's happening right now." "I'll protect you," he said, his tone fierce, desperate. "I'll keep you safe. But you need to know the truth. You need to know what's out there. What I'm up against." Emily stood up abruptly, her hands shaking. She needed space. She needed air. The world felt like it was closing in on her. The ground beneath her feet seemed unsteady, her stomach twisting with every word that came out of his mouth. How long have you known? She asked, her voice breaking. How long have you known that I was your mate? Orion hesitated, his jaw tightening as he fought with the guilt inside him. He wanted to say it had been forever, that he'd known from the moment they met, but the truth was darker than that. He hadn't known exactly what she was to him, not until the bond had snapped into place. But that was a truth he wasn't ready to share yet. Not long, he finally said, though his voice wavered. But long enough to know I can't let you go. Emily's breath hitched, her heart racing. What does that even mean? What do you want from me? Orion ran a hand through his hair, trying to find the right words. There was no easy way to explain this, no way to make her understand what this all meant, what they were bound to. But he had to try. I want to protect you, he said, his voice softer now, pleading almost. I want to keep you safe, keep you away from the danger I face. But more than that, I want you. I can't deny what I feel for you. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as the weight of his words hit her. The emotions were too much. Fear, confusion, anger. They all collided, a storm inside her chest that she couldn't contain. You can't be serious, she said, her voice trembling. This is insane. You're a werewolf. You're saying, I'm supposed to be what? Your mate. I never asked for this, he replied, his voice tight, his hands clenched into fists. I didn't ask for this bond. But I can't ignore it. I can't ignore you. And I can't let anyone harm you because of me. Emily's legs gave out, and she sank back into the chair. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to tear it all apart. But instead, she was frozen, unable to make sense of what was happening. All she could do was stare at him. The man who was no longer just the guy she'd met by chance in the park, but something far darker, far more dangerous. The man who had just told her that her life would never be the same again. The silence between them stretched, thick and suffocating. Emily's mind raced, her heart thundering in her chest. How could this be real? How could he be real? A werewolf. And yet, every part of her, every instinct, every fiber of her being, was telling her it was true. There was no denying it. Not anymore. She closed her eyes, trying to make sense of it all, but the more she thought about it, the more her mind seemed to unravel. Her world, her whole existence, had just been turned upside down. Everything she'd ever known, everything she'd ever believed, felt like it was slipping through her fingers. She was trapped, and she didn't know what to do. Orion stood there, watching her with eyes full of regret. He had wanted to keep her safe, to protect her from this world. But now, with the truth out in the open, he realized there was no way to shield her from what was coming. The truth wasn't just dangerous. It was a force that couldn't be controlled, a force that had already begun to consume them both. I know this is a lot to process, Orion said quietly, his voice softer now, almost pleading. But please, you need to understand. This isn't just about us. It's about the pack. The rival packs will come for you. They already know about you. They'll use you against me, against the pack. Emily's eyes snapped open, the weight of his words finally sinking in. She had always known there was danger in the world. She just hadn't realized it was this dangerous. And now, she was in the middle of it. There was no running, no escaping. She was tied to him, whether she liked it or not. I don't understand, she whispered. Why me? Why am I your mate? I'm just human. Orion's jaw clenched, and for a moment, his gaze softened. The bond doesn't care about that, he said, his voice raw. It's not about what you are. It's about what we are together. You're the one who completes me. And I can't lose you, Emily. I can't. Tears burned in her eyes as she turned away, her hands shaking as they clutched the edge of the table. She could feel it, the pull between them. It was like a rope, invisible but unbreakable, tugging her closer to him. She could feel his presence even when she wasn't looking at him. The bond was real, but that didn't make it any easier to accept. I don't want this, she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't ask for this. I know, Orion replied, his tone low and heavy with guilt. Neither did I, but it's here now, and I won't let anything happen to you. His words sent a wave of conflicting emotions through her, fear, anger, confusion. She didn't know what to feel. She didn't know what she was supposed to do. Her life had been so simple before. She had her job, her friends, her routines. Now, everything was shattered. She was tangled in a web of danger, a world that she didn't understand, and there was no way out. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time, really saw the raw, desperate longing in his eyes, the pain that was evident in every inch of his being. He wasn't the monster she'd imagined. He was something else. A man who was fighting for control, fighting to protect her from a world that would tear them both apart. But she wasn't ready. She wasn't ready for any of this. She wasn't ready to be thrust into a world she didn't understand. "I need time," Emily said, her voice barely a whisper. I can't just accept this." Orion's heart ached at her words. He knew this was too much, too fast. But he couldn't leave her. Not now. Not ever. "I'll give you time," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I won't rush you. But know this, you're not alone in this. I'll always protect you, no matter what." Emily nodded, wiping the tears from her eyes. She couldn't speak. She was overwhelmed, overcome with the weight of the situation. But in the pit of her stomach, something was stirring, a spark of curiosity, of something deeper. Could she really walk away from this? Could she walk away from him? The seconds stretched on, filled with nothing but silence, until the quiet was broken by the sound of distant howling. The wolves were close. The rival pack was closing in. Orion's posture stiffened, his eyes narrowing. He could feel it, too. The shift in the air, the threat that was drawing closer. They didn't have much time. "Get inside," Orion said, his voice sharp and urgent. "I need you to stay inside. It's not safe out here." Emily's heart raced as the sound of the howls grew louder, closer. She could feel the tension in the air, the urgency in his voice, and for the first time, she realized just how dangerous this world was. This was more than just a man she was falling for. This was a world of wolves, of power, of survival. And she was at the center of it. "No," she said, shaking her head. "I'm not going anywhere without you." Orion's eyes flashed with a mix of surprise and admiration. She was stronger than he had realized. But it wasn't safe. It would never be safe for her in this world. "You can't stay out here," he said firmly, his voice filled with command. "It's too dangerous. Please, just listen to me." But Emily's resolve was unshaken. "I'm not leaving. Not now. Not after everything you've told me. I'm not going anywhere." Orion's breath hitched, a mixture of pride and fear flooding through him. She was brave, stronger than he had given her credit for. But he couldn't protect her if she didn't listen. The rival pack wasn't just any enemy, they were ruthless. And if they knew she was his mate, they would stop at nothing to use her against him. He reached for her hand, his grip tight, but gentle. "Then stay close. Whatever happens, stay close to me." The night air felt charged, as though everything was about to change in an instant. Emily stood tall, looking into his eyes, the bond between them humming in the silence. It was too late to turn back. There was no going back now. And then, in the distance, he saw them. Figures moving through the trees, shadows against the moonlight. The rival pack had arrived. Orion's pulse quickened. He could feel the tension, the impending fight. He had to protect Emily. But he wasn't sure if he was ready for what was coming. He wasn't sure if any of them were. "Get ready," Orion whispered, his voice low and dangerous. "They're here." Emily's heart skipped a beat as she turned to face the approaching threat. The wolves were coming, and they were about to fight for their lives. If you're hooked, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Drop a comment with what you think Emily's next move will be. And don't forget to like this video if you want to see more of this story unfold.